StraighTAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, does a college degree equal competence? That's a question that we're going to answer here today. Now, this topic is an extension of a conversation that we have been having around the concept of credibility, credentials, expertise, and who or should not be listened to based on their background and or resume. I will tell you all at the top of this that I am a possessor and owner of a 4-year college degree. I majored in business with a focus in management and marketing from the Pennsylvania State University. 2004 was my year of graduation. I want to make sure that that is on the table before I tell you what I'm going to tell you when I get into my points, because some of you who are college degree holders may be offended by what is coming. But now that we got all that out the way, let's just get straight to offending you so I can get into my points here. So the topic once again here today is, let's not delay the inevitable. Does a college degree equal competency? Point number one, the answer is no, it does not. Holding a college degree does not make you competent. And when I say college degree here, I'm using it as a metaphor for any other type of certification, qualification, documentation that you may hold that says you know your stuff in a particular area. Just because you have that, especially one that requires just studying and nothing else, does not mean that you actually know your stuff. Like, for example, just because you have a real estate license does not mean you know much about the real estate market. Doesn't mean you can successfully get a house sold or bought. Doesn't really mean that you know anything. Just means that you went through the proper channels to get the proper documentation. We're going to get into that later on today. Having a college degree does not even mean that you're educated, honestly, if we look at the etymology of the word. The etymology of the word education comes from the word ducidere, which is about to bring out from within. That's what it means. That's the etymology of the word, is to bring something out from within. Whereas the educational system in the United States of America is about inputting material rather than bringing material out. And this applies to any area in which you have to study in order to pass a test. So the bar exam, whether it's medical exams, whether it's a real estate exam, whether it's becoming a tax attorney or a tax accountant, going to college in general. Now, some of these you have to do some real life things before you get the certification. So that's a little bit different situation. But the ones where you just have to study some stuff and prove that you quote unquote know it and prove that you have retained the information, no, that does not apply. So again, looking at the etymology of the word education, then you'll understand what I'm saying here, as I just explained to you. And when you do get the certification, the documentation, etc., from, let's say, college, what does that prove? What it proves is that you did a good job of following the rules of that environment. Any outcome you get from a certain environment means you did a good job of following the rules of that environment. You get a college degree, that means you did a good job of following the rules of what it takes to get a college degree. How do you get a college degree? Go to class, take some notes, maybe, study for the test, and when the test comes, answer enough questions to get a satisfactory grade to where you get a satisfactory grade in the class, which I believe can be a D or higher, maybe a C or higher, depending on your major. And do that often enough, you accumulate credits, you get a certain number of credits, now you are qualified for a degree, then you graduate. There you are, a college graduate. Congratulations. That's how it works. And again, I told you at the top of this episode that I have a college degree, so please don't take this as this is some person who never got a college degree shitting on people who have college degrees. This is a person who does have a college degree shitting on people who have college degrees. I'm shitting on the concept of college degrees, not people who have them, because then that means I'm shitting on myself. It would not be a good idea. So all it means when you have a college degree is that you follow the rules in order to get the degree. That's it. That's all it means. And the ultimate outcome of going to college is getting the degree. The process of getting the degree is what I just said. Getting the degree does not require competence necessarily. Depends on what type of competence we're talking about. Does not require you to be smart, again, necessarily. Doesn't mean you need to be any level of an intellectual, necessarily. It doesn't mean you need to have a certain level of intelligence. Doesn't mean any of these things. I just did an episode talking about intelligence. Let me find where that episode was. Episode number 3274, 3 keys to increasing your intelligence. All right, none of them is you can consume something and regurgitate it 3 weeks later on a test. All right, that was not one of the 3 points that I made in that episode, but that is essentially what it takes to be a successful student in the American educational system, regardless of what grade or level you're at. You consume the information and prove that you have retained enough of it that you get a satisfactory grade on an examination. That's how you get certifications and degrees. Is anybody going to challenge me on this? The way you get a certification or a degree is the material is given to you, you consume it, and then an examination is given in which you prove, quote unquote, that you have retained enough of that information that you can regurgitate it back to whomever is administering the exam. That's it. Now, does that mean that you actually know the material? No, because you don't know something until you actually done it. Does that mean you're even going to retain the material past the time it takes to take the test? The answer is no, because there are plenty of things that I allegedly learned in college that I could not tell you about today if you asked me the question to prompt me. Why? Because I did not retain the information any longer than I needed to pass the examination. This is the problem with the educational system. Doesn't mean that people who have degrees are not necessarily smart. Doesn't mean that you didn't retain the information. I just said I didn't retain it. But do you have to retain it in order to get your degree? Do you got to keep every year updating your degree like a real estate license? No, you don't. No, you get it one time and that's it. So what does this actually prove? It doesn't prove shit. That's my point. It just proves that you passed through the system the way that the system is currently designed. The process for acquiring a degree is what I just said. You pass enough of the test to get a satisfactory grade upon which you accumulate credits and you get awarded a degree. I remember when I was a freshman in college, my friend Trelena, she said to me, Dre, you can go and get, because she was talking about her major and stuff. She was thinking further ahead than I was, at least freshman year of college. And she was telling me how she went to the one of the academic offices on campus. This is at Penn State Abington, the first college that I went to out of high school. And she said, you can get a degree audit. And I said, what's the degree audit? I never heard of that. She said, the degree audit is paperwork that they print out, because this is like 2001-ish. They'll print out this paperwork that's specifically for you, that tells you what you are majored in right now, what major you have declared, and it will show you what classes you have already taken, how many credits you have already accumulated, and then it basically gives you a roadmap for how many more credits you need to get in order to get a degree. And there's a certain number of credits you got to have to get a degree in certain schools of a college. So you want a business degree, you need this many. You need a psychology degree, you need this many. You want a science degree, whatever, the biology degree, you need this many. So they tell you exactly how many credits you need to acquire in order to get the degree. So to get a business degree from Penn State University at the time that I was there, I needed something like 123 credit hours or something like that. So I remember going and getting the audit during my sophomore or junior year of college, and it told me you need this many credits in order to get the degree and all of that stuff. And once I completed that, then I got my degree, and then I graduated, and here we are. So does any of this prove that I am smart, intellectual, or insightful? No. Are there people who are smart, intellectual, and insightful to get college degrees? Yes, I hope I am one of them, based on your judgment. But have you ever gone to college with someone who wasn't really that smart, that intellectual, and not really insightful, but they graduated anyway? Of course you have. All right. So it doesn't mean everybody who gets one is necessarily these things. So the point here is, just because you have a certain certification doesn't prove anything. Now, you can prove something by actually going and doing it in real life. All right, that's how you actually know something. We talked about this when I talked about the levels of expertise. If you have not heard me talk about the levels of expertise, that was episode number 1402, 5 levels of expertise. The first level, the 0 level, is doing nothing. First level is consuming. Second level is, let me make sure I got that right. I don't think I remember all of them off the top of my head. I think the second level is, so the first level is consuming. Level 1, consuming. Level 2 is doing. Level 3 is teaching. Level 3 is doing. Level 4 is teaching. Level 4 is getting paid to teach. Level 5 is they seek you out to pay you to teach. Level 5, seek you out to pay you to teach. Level 4 is you get paid to teach. Level 3 is you are able to teach. Level 2 is you have done it. And level 1 is you have consumed it. There we go. So let me do that again in order. Level 0 is doing absolutely nothing. Your expertise, doing nothing. You have no expertise. Level 1 of expertise is you are consuming material, so you claim you know it. This is a college student. All right, you consume something, you study something, you got a degree in it, so you think you know something. Most college graduates think they know something because they have a degree. You don't know shit. That's level 1 of expertise. Level 2 is when you actually do it. You actually start putting it to use in your real life, i.e. you go get a job with your accounting degree. Now you actually are at level 2 because you're actually doing something. Level 3 is when you can teach it to other people. This is the level where you start to become real. When you can start to teach what you know to other people and now they know it, that's how you truly know that you know something, when you can teach it to somebody else. Level 4 is when you get paid to teach it. And level 5 is when people come seek you out to pay you to teach it. Those are the 5 levels of expertise. Again, episode 1402. Point number 2, today's topic once again is, does a college degree equal competence? And the answer is no. Number 2, I'm saying what I said in the first point, going super logical on you for you to get to the, just so we can get to the more conversation and colloquial point of today's episode. Because I told you it's not really about a college degree. Just because you have a degree or any other credential, professional or otherwise, does not necessarily mean that what you say or what you believe is some solid gold word, nor does it mean that we should listen to anything that you have to say just on the basis of you having that credential. It does not mean that you are above reproach, doesn't mean you are above questioning, and it doesn't mean that the only people who you can be reproached by or questioned by are people who have to have an equal or higher level of credential than you. I find a lot of people who fall into the credential vortex tend to operate by this very frame, that if you don't have the same credentials as me, you can't question me on the thing that I'm saying. I vehemently disagree with this frame, but I find a lot of people with credentials tend to use this frame. Specifically, most egregiously, are people in the academic space. They do this more than anybody. People in the academic space do this more than everybody else put together, in my experience. Actually, that's not true. There's another group that is just as guilty of this. Those are people in the medical space. So this is the academics, people who are, people who basically trade on their thoughts, alleged thoughts, and their alleged intellect for a living. These are your college professors, book writers, journal authors, these type of folks. And then you got your medical people, the doctors. Those two are the most guilty of this. Now, that is not to say that if you're listening to this and you happen to be in one of these groups, that you do not necessarily know your stuff. Doesn't mean that you're not smart. Doesn't mean you're not an expert. Doesn't mean that you may not have some solid points to bring to the open marketplace. But it also does not mean just because you have that credential that I have to listen to everything that you say and that you are above reproach and questioning, even by someone who does not have your credentials. And if you are carrying yourself as if someone who doesn't have your credentials is not qualified to question you, you are the exact person I'm talking about. You are the problem, not the solution. Everybody understand this? I told you a few episodes ago, episode 2238, when I told you about I trashed the American medical system and told you the experience of my son being born and how the people at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, Florida, were basically trying to tell me what they were going to do with my child. And I told them that you're not going to do that. And the doctor came to me and was basically trying to use the authority frame on me. Well, hey, I'm the doctor and I get to make the final call here. I understand why she had that frame. Number one, she went to medical school for, who knows, 8 years to get her position. And who am I with 0 years of medical school telling her what she can and can't do? I understand her frame from that perspective. Secondly, she's running the neonatal intensive care unit where every nurse in there is basically waiting for her to tell them what to do and what not to do. She's the boss of all these people. So who am I, this random dude in a suit who didn't even go to nursing school, going to tell her what she can and can't do with a patient that is in her neonatal intensive care unit? So I understand her frame, but what frame she did not understand, and I didn't read this woman to be a parent, because I dealt with some other doctors in the hospital who were parents and they had a much different approach. I didn't read her to be a parent, is that she didn't understand the frame that I was operating from, which is, bitch, I don't give a fuck where you went to school or how long or who you're a boss of. You ain't my boss. I have no bosses, and no one is going to tell me what's going to happen to my child. And my frame beat her frame, and that's the reason why I ended up getting my way in that situation. Point being, folks, is that there are a lot of folks, and she's one example of people in those two fields. Those are the two that come to mind the most. The medical field and the academic field, who hold this frame of, because I have this credential, no one who does not have this credential is allowed to ask me a question or challenge anything that I say. I remember I was talking to a college professor a few years ago, and this college professor was saying something like, along the lines of, this is not their exact words, I will tell you something exactly that they said, but they were saying that, they put some idea out there in the world publicly, and some people who are not from the academic space were questioning and challenging their perspective. So some academic put something out for the world, and some random person who's not an academic started pushing back against the things that the academic was saying. And the academic said this. I remember they said these exact words. They said, I am a college professor. Why do I have to justify my perspective to you? This person was a female. She wasn't saying it to me personally. She was saying it kind of as a figure of speech, or not a figure of speech, but she was basically saying it rhetorically. I am a college professor. Therefore, if you're not one, who are you to question anything that I say? This is a bullshit frame. If what you say is actually sound and solid and justifiable, then you should have no problem defending it and having a question by someone who does not know what you know. Because if you know a lot more than them, it should be easy for you to educate them based on your knowledge. Because again, levels of expertise. The third level of expertise is when you can teach other people what you know. If you're at least at level 3 of expertise, then you should have no problem with anyone challenging you on anything that you say, even if you have you have years of knowledge, decades of knowledge that they don't have. It should be easy for you to educate them because you're so far ahead of them. I welcome any one of you who's listening to this to challenge me on anything that I say on any subject in which I present myself as knowing what I'm talking about. I will gladly educate you if you seek to be educated. If you want to challenge me, I will gladly respond to your challenge. Please offer what you got. I would never say to you, well, hey, I played pro basketball for this many years, therefore you can't question me. Now, I may use the fact that I played pro basketball as supporting evidence of my position, but I would never use that as a shield to say to you, well, you didn't play pro ball, so you can't ask me a question, or you can't challenge what I say, or you can't disagree with me. That's bullshit. Same thing I would say if someone asked me a question about creating content or running a business or writing a book or doing a TED Talk or any other thing that I've done. I'm willing to engage and I'm willing to tell you my reasons for doing what I'm doing. Whether you agree with them or not is immaterial to me, but if you ask, I'll answer. All right, that's the way that I operate. And I don't appreciate when people don't operate by this frame, if you can't tell. So when you're in one of these positions, you have to be very careful that you're not trying to high ground people by saying, well, I know this much and you haven't done the studying that I've done. Therefore, you're unqualified to speak on the subject. This is that world is pretty much coming to an end. Just to let all of you know, that world where you could do that, it's pretty much coming to an end because we've democratized publishing, we've democratized information, and we've democratized engagement. Meaning there are no walls up and there are no barriers to entry for anyone to do any of these things. Anybody who makes himself available on the internet can be engaged with. Anyone who has access to the internet can publish, and anyone who is available in the open marketplace can be challenged or questioned. Now, you may not answer the challenge or question, but you can be challenged or questioned, and everything that you put out there is going to at some point be exposed to the public. And you're going to have to answer for it, whether you want to or not. That's just the game that we're in, folks. And all of you need to understand this. So you should listen to what another person says, not based on their credentials, but based on the quality of their arguments and the quality of their points, rather than the background from which they come. Again, just because you have a certain background in a thing does not mean you know anything. I've had someone with a college degree and nothing more say, well, I studied XYZ subject in college. And more than one time I had to tell them, I don't give a fuck what you studied in college. That don't mean shit. That just means you sat in the classroom and passed the test. You don't know shit. Again, there's levels of expertise, folks. Remember these 5 levels. Level 1 is consuming. Level 2 is you are engaging in doing. Level 3 is when you teach. If you're not at level 3 or above, you are unqualified to tell anyone that they can't question you because you don't really know what you're talking about. I'm talking to everybody who's listening to this. If you have not taught other people how to do what you quote unquote know, you don't really know it. Does everybody understand that? It doesn't mean you can't ascend to the higher level, but until you're at level 3, you don't know shit. It doesn't matter what you studied, how long you studied it. If your argument is good, you don't need to mention your background or credentials. If your argument is good, you don't need to mention your background or credentials. Just make your argument, and your argument will stand on its own 2 feet. Doesn't matter who you are. Just tell me the argument. And if someone's argument is trash, by the way, you don't need to question their background or credentials. If your argument is trash, I will tell you why your argument is trash. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you went to school or if you even went to school at all. I don't care. I don't care what your background is. If we're having a conversation about basketball and the furthest your career went is LA Fitness and my career went professionally for a decade and you make a trash argument about basketball, I'm not going to tell you your argument is trash because you only played at LA Fitness. I'm going to tell you your argument is trash because the argument is trash, and I'm going to explain to you why it's trash. Regardless of your actual background as a player and regardless of my background as a player, your argument is trash because it's trash, and I'm going to tell you why. Anyone with expertise should be able to do that and should be able to hold that frame that I just gave you. In my experience, the more credentials a person accumulates, the more likely they are to lean on their credentials rather than the quality of their argument. And some of you who are listening to this, you are guilty of this. I've seen too many people do it to believe that the audience of this show is completely devoid of anyone guilty of this. There are people who are listening to this now. I still love you, but you're guilty of this. You got to catch yourself on this and stop doing this. If your point's good, that's all you need. Your point should be able to stand on its own 2 feet. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, does a college degree equal credential or does it equal competence? Number 3. And in the bigger picture of everything that I'm talking about here today, this is not about a college degree, as I said. It's not about any specific credential or bullet point on your resume, as I've already said. Just because you have those things does not mean anything you say is true. Doesn't mean anything you say is accurate. You may use them as I said, supporting evidence. I will use my own background as supporting evidence for the things that I say, but they are not proof that my position is solid, nor does it mean that I am beyond reproach. If you find yourself using them as such, you need to check the quality of your arguments, because the quality of argument does not need to use the resume of the creator of said argument as a defense mechanism. Should I say that one more time? A quality argument does not need to use the resume of the creator of said argument as a defense mechanism. So this is the person who says something like, hey, I've been a college professor for 15 years and you can't question my teaching style. Well, who cares that you've been a college professor for 15 years? And yes, I can question it because I just did. And if I'm a parent and I'm sending my kid to your school, I don't give a damn how long you've been doing it. If I don't like what you're doing or I'm asking you a question, you're going to fucking answer it because I'm writing the check. So what are we doing here? So all of you who ever run into one of these folks, and guaranteed you will run into some of these people in your life, you have to be ready to respond to them and keep control of the frame because you're going to hear this, guaranteed. Especially if you're talking to people in one of these 2 spaces. The medical space and the academic space, these people are most guilty of it. And the reason people in those spaces are most guilty of it because their entire careers are based on credentials. You got to understand that when they're on the inside in their bubble and they're dealing with other medics and they're dealing with other academics, the only thing that matters amongst each other when they're dealing with each other is how long have you been in the game? How many journals have you written? How many years do you have? What degrees do you have? That's the only thing that determines rank in these places. It's all about rank. And the rank is all based on credential. So when they step outside of that world, it's not like they can just turn it on and off. So it's hard for them to turn it off because they've been in that world the whole day where they had rank over these people because of their credentials and these people have rank over them because of credentials. So then they go talk to you peasant with no credentials. Who are you to question me on anything? Do you understand? So you got to understand the way that your opponent, so to speak, is thinking so you can understand why they're communicating the way that they do. This is the way that my mind works. I just think about these things randomly. I'm kind of a geek in that way. So I played professional sports, for example, which you know. If I make a point about playing pro sports to someone who has not played pro sports, the strength of my argument should seal the deal. Again, I don't have to mention, hey, I play pro sports, so I'm right. No, bullshit. While I may mention it, again, supporting evidence, that does not mean that whatever I say has to be accepted just because I mentioned it. Same thing when it comes to other things that I mentioned, writing a book, having a podcast, running a business, anything else. Now, again, you got to back it up with some actual substance. And when you bring substance to the table, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to use anything else as a shield for your substance. The substance stands on its own. Substance stands on its own. Substance cannot be suppressed. If you actually have substance, it's going to show through at some point. And if you have none, depending on where you go, you may be exposed at some point. If you have no substance, you hide in a certain bubble, you might be able to get away with it for your whole career. Again, medics and academics. But in the open marketplace, that's the world that I operate in. I told y'all this in the 12 Work on Your Game commandments. Commandment number 7 is open marketplace commandment. You got to go into the open marketplace and prove yourself. Not the closed marketplace, not the bubble where all your friends are and people who are going to co-sign you. The open marketplace where anybody can question you, anybody can challenge you, and anything can happen. If you can survive in an open marketplace, then you're for real. If you can't, you're not. That's it. All that said, everybody, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work with me directly. Have me as your direct coach. Let's get to work on you getting, climbing those levels of expertise, climbing a ladder of expertise to where you get at least sit at level 3, where you can start teaching things and you know you have some real knowledge because you can explain it to other people. Because if you can explain your knowledge to other people, guess what? Now you can defend your knowledge to other people who may question it. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Have me as your coach. Let's get to work. Work on your game. Dre, all